What's up, you guys? Thank you for joining me in another true crime and craft episode here on Artist Till Death. I have been editing this in every spare moment that I've had. We've been body painting this weekend, so it's been a lot of late nights. I, in fact, have two headphones in now because I'm editing on two different screens. I just had to take a second to come to the park because Jeff is sanding down pieces and it got really loud and fun. They're doing something over there that's super loud, so if you can hear it, I'm so sorry. Oh, and a train, so everything's going great. Additionally, while editing this down, I'm realizing that I should only limit myself to 2 adult chocolate milks when I am very, very, very tired and exhausted and stressed, because apparently alcohol hits you a lot quicker during those times. I didn't understand why my mouth wasn't working by the end of this video until I was doing the editing. After just 3 drinks, I could not operate my mouth. And so it's going to be quite funny. I'm going to hop in and give you a translation of what I'm trying to say. Periodically, I'll be dressed kind of like this, and I hope you enjoy it. If nothing else, get a laugh out of it. I was going to fully refilm it, but I like to give you guys a true look into my life, and so this is part of my life. A lot of times I get tired, and a lot of times that's when I decide I need a drink, and then I just power down. Are you guys like that? Tell me I'm not alone. But anyways, I would like to make it perfectly clear that yes, I let loose in this video. Yes, I did drink too much that I could handle on an empty stomach and being tired, but I am in the company of people I trust. I'm at home, I'm not driving anywhere, and so I think if you drink responsibly, then you should be able to do that. I was going to completely refilm this video, but with body painting for 4 or 5 days, I completely ran out of time, and I'm learning that I stretch myself too thin and overpromise, but I always deliver, and maybe a little bit late. But anyways, I would also like to say that everything in this video is opinion based. It's for entertainment. I am just giving you my interpretation or my reactions to this true crime case, and I hope you enjoy it. I am not a lawyer, a doctor, a scientist, an attorney. I am just an artist that is sharing my opinion based on these videos. These videos, by the way, in this episode, and I'm still trying to find my groove for how I'm going to do this series. So I'm trying a bunch of different things while I'm figuring this out. So please comment and let me know what it is that you think that you like or dislike about this. I'm Mod Podging things together to get an idea of what people like and hate. And so I'm doing a bunch of things, a bunch of different ways to see what works best. And in this video, I'm reacting to Stephanie Harlowe. You should check her out. She's an amazing, very in-depth true crime person, and I respect what she does so much. And so this video, I'm just doing a lot of reaction to how she told this case. So I hope you enjoy. Here we go.
Erin Patterson grew up Erin Scudder in the Melbourne suburb of Glen Waverley with her sister, who's now a trained geologist, and their parents, Heather and Hugh Scudder. And this is a very prolific family, actually, because Erin's sister is, a doctor, a geologist, and we're going to talk about her mother in a minute, who also has quite a reputation. Now, Erin would eventually marry Simon Patterson, a Gippsland local and civil engineer who was also very passionate about photography as a hobby, and they would go on to have 2 children together who are now, at the time of this incident, both teenagers. Well, some sources say they're teenagers, some say they're 12 and 14, but regardless, you get it. That's not a super important detail to this story, but I do like to try and get things right. After getting married and having children, Erin and Simon lived in Western Australia for a little while. They ran a bookshop together, and after that, they lived in Quinup, I believe it's called, which is south of Perth, and it's supposed to be a very kind of rural, isolated region. And then they returned to the East Coast to Corumburra, at which point they began running a local newspaper called the Burra Flyer newsletter, previously run by Simon Patterson's parents, Gail and Don Patterson, two people who also end up being two of the four people that passed away after that July 29th lunch. Now, from what I can tell, Erin edited the newsletter while Simon took pictures for it. And during this time, they occupied a beautiful home with their children in Leongatha. It's been described as sort of like a personal paradise. It has its own creek, an over 2-acre garden. It's resplendent with wildlife of all kinds. They said there was like koalas in their garden sometimes, all sorts of birds, butterflies, you know, the whole nine.
Listen, so this is in Perth, Australia, and Jeff and I have been to Perth twice teaching resin classes, and let me tell you, the wildlife there is no joke. It's always such beautiful, like, it sounds like a soundtrack to a movie. B, what do you think about the sound of Australia?
It's pretty crazy. I have that. I have it somewhere.
Ooh,
Actual sound.
we can link that in here. The idea that there's a koala in your backyard is for real, because
That's insane.
the place that we stayed at, they had kangaroos just wild in the backyard. We would look out the window.
Like right at, like, it woke me up. And I look out and they're like just eating underneath the window.
Oh my goodness.
Well, when we went up there, they were like, there's kangaroos. And I'm like, okay. I thought we'd see one just scattering, just
Yeah.
like run by.
Going.
It's like you don't even know, like you see it in your periph and you're like, I bet that was a
Something.
kangaroo. But it was probably just a big rodent, but you're like, kangaroo, I know it was a kangaroo. But it was kangaroo, so the fact that they had koalas in the yard.
So it seemed like Erin and Simon had the picture-perfect life, but in the spring of 2022, after suffering from a severe, mysterious gastrointestinal sickness that left Simon Patterson in an induced coma for 16 days, something seemed to shift, and the couple separated. They kind of went their own ways.
Okay, since you're in the healthcare biz,
Yes.
how serious is that 16 days?
16 days, that's a lot. I mean, usually you're definitely in the hospital. If you have, like, you're gonna have to get nutrition somehow. So you're gonna have something in your nose or in your mouth that's going all the way down to your stomach, feeding you.
I can't imagine. 19 days. Okay.
Simon began living with his parents in Corumburra. Now, something you need to know about Erin Patterson is that it appeared she was independently wealthy after making some smart real estate and financial investments, which left her with the ability to not have to work, and she could be a stay-at-home mother. And she purchased several more houses and properties, including a $931,000 villa in Mount Waverly, right around the corner from where she'd grown up. Erin also purchased land in Leongatha, which is in South Gippsland, where she would eventually build a 2-story home. And this is where she was living alone and with her children at the time of the incident this past July, while her estranged husband Simon was occupying a separate residence in Corumburra just 15 miles away. Now, initially, we were told that the split between Simon and Erin had been amicable. However, reason that
Right. If it's a split,
It's done.
how amicable is it?
It's not.
0%. You know, a lot of people are.
We did it for the kids.
Take
Everything's
Jada
fine.
and Will.
Everything's fine. Oh, we're not even.
That's a whole nother
That's a
episode.
whole nother thing.
Did you see that interview? Anyway.
Which one?
The recent one with the lady.
Yes, I did.
That was an interview.
It has recently been reported that the whole reason this lunch had been set up in the first place was because Erin wanted to reunite with Simon, try to work it out. But according to a close family friend who didn't want to be named, Simon didn't necessarily want this, and neither did his family. They kind of felt that Erin, I guess, wasn't good enough for Simon. That was the impression that at least Erin got. And she was going to try to prove to them and convince them that she could be good for him, that she wanted to do the right thing, that she wanted this to work.
The reason why they were all getting together was because since they had separated, Wifey was like, I just really think we should get back together. And this was a kind of like a peace offering. And according to her mind was, I'm going to just invite everybody over. I'm going to make this elaborate lunch, a beef Wellington, which is, it's a labor of love, I hear. I've never made it, but I see Gordon Ramsay yell about it a lot. And so I feel like it's something I could never make myself, but that I would like to try. But
we can try.
I want to try to eat it, not to try to.
I won't try to make it.
There's baking involved, and that's a science, and we don't do science.
That Erin Patterson had for lunch that day were Simon's parents, 70-year-old Gal Patterson and 70-year-old Don Patterson, along with Gal's sister, 66-year-old Heather Wilkinson, and her husband, 68-year-old Ian Wilkinson. And Ian was a pastor in Corambora, and apparently Ian was present because this lunch was supposed to be a church-mediated gathering, or intervention, if you will, with Ian acting as the mediator. I believe that what they wanted to do was tell Erin, this isn't going to work out. This isn't what we think is best for you and Simon to reunite, so we're going to try to convince you of that at this point. Now, the family friend who's given us insight into what was to be discussed that afternoon said, quote, the people who died were talking to them because they're heavily ingrained with the church, and they wanted to make sure she was right to resume a relationship with Simon. She was basically petitioning to get back with him, and the family didn't think it was the right move, end quote.
I don't understand.
How do you petition to get back with someone?
So maybe it's a kind of religion. I don't know that anything. And so we have a lot of subscribers from Australia. It's our second biggest demographic, and I'm sure they will correct this video where needed. I guess probably very naive to a lot of things, most things probably, but I'm assuming, this is a very big assumption, that is, I don't know if they're saying that she was right and like she's the correct choice, or she was right in like
her thoughts.
Right. So I don't know what that means. And then she was basically petitioning to get back with him, and the family didn't think it was the right move. So I don't know why she has to petition to anybody, unless it's just because there's some people that are very, I'm going to do what my mom says, and that's all that I'm going to do because my mom said.
Right.
And I don't know if this is the case here, but I don't know what else it could mean. But essentially, she was pleading with both the church and his family to get back together. She really wanted to get back together. And apparently, everybody else was like,
but why?
I don't think so.
Why?
Well, nobody in his side of the anybody was into them getting back together.
Okay.
Ingrained with the church, and they wanted to make sure she was right to resume a relationship with Simon. She was basically petitioning to get back with him, and the family didn't think it was the right move, end quote. Simon Patterson was also supposed to be present for lunch at his estranged wife's home that day. I should hope so, considering it is ultimately his decision as to whether or not he gets back together with her, and I'm not sure why his parents and his aunt and uncle have to be present. At the last minute, Simon canceled for reasons unknown. Now, once again, some reports say he canceled at the last minute. Erin Patterson herself has recently come out and said it wasn't really the last minute. He let her know the day before that he wasn't going to be there. But regardless, he was not there that afternoon. And initially, it was reported and we were told that Simon and Erin's 2 children were at the house that day for lunch. But it has since...
I forgot to mention, they had 2 kids. And so the story is...
older or younger?
Well... undisclosed-ish, I think preteen, like 13-ish. Some sources say they were teenagers, some said that they were not, so I'm going with preteen.
revealed, or at least told to us by Erin, that the two kids left to go see a movie before the main course was served. So they were not there to consume the beef Wellington, which is, I will say, convenient. And it's like if they're teenagers or if they're 12.
Is it convenient or is it by choice though? Like if she made this big elaborate dinner that takes like an entire day to do, and then she's like, you two, shoot. But honestly, if so she's meeting with her ex-in-laws. Maybe she's anticipating like some pushback.
Maybe she just doesn't want them to be around.
Right. Okay, so does she not want them to be around for what happened? Or does she not want them to be around because she may get in an argument with these ex-in-laws?
Maybe both.
Her grandparents.
Maybe both.
14, as it's been reported, even if they're under the age of 16 or even under the age of 18, like who brought them to the movies, right? You can't send a 12 and a 14-year-old to the movies by themselves. You can't expect them to drive themselves there. They can't probably be there by themselves. So who took them to the movie? Has it been confirmed that they went to a movie? Those questions are not answered. Now, in early reporting, it was a mystery what meal was served by Erin, or if the meal even contained mushrooms at all. She wouldn't comment on what she'd cooked that afternoon when she was talked to by reporters later on. We've recently found out that Erin cooked beef Wellington for her guests, a dish that features mushrooms heavily. It's also very, very delicious. Usually, maybe not this afternoon.
Yeah, did you see that picture?
Now, that day...
No.
So that's a beef Wellington. It's like a really awesomely cooked steak, and all of this right here is mushrooms. It's just packed on mushrooms, and then it's like a puff pastry on the outside. But there's like a Dijon type mustard that's between the mushrooms. I just want this without the mushrooms.
Can
I order that? Can I just get meat in carbs?
we switch it with like spinach?
Yeah.
Spinach would be good.
I would take spinach.
I would spinach. I would spinach.
I would spinach.
Wellington, very, very delicious. Usually, maybe not this afternoon. Now, that day after lunch, all 4 of Erin's guests started to feel ill with stomach pains, nausea, and vomiting. And on Sunday, July 30th, as their condition began to deteriorate, they were all admitted to the hospital to be treated for food poisoning, right? Because that's initially what they thought they had. On Friday, August 4th, Gal Patterson and her sister, Heather Wilkinson, sadly passed away.
Okay, so this is the family. So this is Gail's sister and brother-in-law. Okay, so this is her ex-husband's brother and sister.
Okay.
These are the parents of him, her ex-husband.
Got
so
it.
ex-husband, mom, dad, siblings. So
And then, okay, timeline-wise, let's go back. So they eat this beef Wellington.
Yep.
And then how much time goes by? They go to the hospital. And time-wise, what would it be?
that
That night?
I want to say that they had stomach problems that night, and they maybe went to the hospital the next day.
Got it.
I think it's mentioned, actually.
Okay.
Now, that day after lunch, all 4 of Erin's guests started to feel ill with stomach pains, nausea, and vomiting. And on Sunday, July 30th, as their condition began to deteriorate, they were all admitted to the hospital to be treated for food poisoning, right? Because that's initially what they thought they had. On Friday, August 4th, Gal Patterson...
So, coming from a medical professional, usually you do not go to the hospital for any type of food poisoning. It's usually like, oh shit, I think I'm sick. I think I might have the flu. Maybe it's something I ate, but usually you just stick it out. They must have been very, very sick if
To
they
actually
went,
gone.
to go to the hospital for that.
That would make sense, because I thought about that. I was like, how upset would my stomach have to be for me to be like, I'm leaving the comfort
Of your
my own
bed.
space,
Yep.
my bed, probably curled up to the toilet. It's still more comfortable than sitting in a waiting room and having to wait on a bathroom, maybe.
Yep. They have to be very, very sick.
It'd have to be very sick. That's a good point.
On Friday, August 4th, Gal Patterson and her sister Heather Wilkinson sadly passed away. The next day, Don Patterson also died, leaving only Ian Wilkinson alive, fighting for his life, on life support and in critical condition.
So, if 2 patients around you died
of stomach problems.
Of stomach problems within 12 hours of each other.
So big thing is, whenever you first get admitted to the hospital and you have stomach problems, if like anything like that, no matter what, you're gonna get a drug tox. So, but
they're gonna test you.
They'll test you.
But just for drugs.
For drugs or anything like toxins or anything like that.
This is for the U.S.
Yes.
They're in Australia.
Yes.
It may be a little bit different.
So, normally they would. And then, if there was anything bad in your system, or you would think we could catch it then. But some things do not come up in drug tests or any of those type of tests.
So if it was a poisonous mushroom.
No, those would not come up.
Would it be, is there a situation that you would have someone come in there and you'd be like, that's poisoning, specifically mushroom poisoning?
No. There's like nothing that we would be like, oh, okay, like this is, because, okay, for instance, this sounds weird, but like, okay, if someone were to ingest a light bulb, I don't know why.
Did you say ingest a light bulb?
Yes. Yes.
Go on.
There is a certain, like, I think it's either your mercury levels or something very, very weird gets out of whack with it. And so, yeah, we will test for that.
You're saying if you ingest something weird, not specifically a light bulb, there's nothing in a light bulb.
No, there's something in a light bulb.
So how does a light bulb have to do with?
But I'm just saying, like, okay, so there are certain very weird things like light bulbs that we test certain things for. But mushrooms, it's not like there's like a, hey, I just ate mushrooms, I'm going to test for mushrooms.
So you're telling me that there's a higher likelihood of testing for light bulb?
Well, it's the mercury that's in a light bulb, but yes.
So light bulb ingestion hits higher on the scale than poisoning by death cap mushrooms.
It's more like, well, I didn't want to get into it, but like it's more like if someone, we have a lot, okay, where I work, we have people that like to put things up places that they should not.
The exit. Okay.
This is just a tree. It's fine.
I think it's a great tree. I was gonna say that it was a tree earlier.
Fighting for his life, on life support, and in critical condition. And that's when law enforcement came out and announced that they suspected Gail, Don, Heather, and Ian were not suffering from food poisoning at all. They had been exhibiting symptoms of death cap mushroom poisoning. And fun fact, death cap mushrooms are...
They recognized that they were exhibiting symptoms, probably because I feel like those mushrooms may be more prevalent. But they didn't know that they had eaten something like this.
Right.
Because who would assume?
We're just going to go over, we're going to have a nice dinner. Nice. And then...
Amicable. Okay, so I don't want to get ahead of the story, but she may or may not have tried to poison him before. She may or may not have...
Well, is this why...
Allegedly been a horticulturist, isn't it? Is that the word? Horticulturist, that they do, like, plants?
I'm not really sure what they're called, but...
I'm going to edit in the right word over my face and, like, beep it in. Beep. It's going to be like horticulturist, but, like, in the playback, it's going to be like ornithologist. You know, that's definitely not the right word, but that was the other biggest word I could come up with at the moment. Anyway, so let's just move on with mushrooms.
Are actually responsible for 90% of lethal mushroom poisonings globally. And that's because they can look pretty benign if you don't know what you're looking for. Now,
if we're fair,
all mushrooms...
That didn't look like the most murdery mushroom I've ever seen.
I'm glad that you know what a murdery mushroom is.
I don't know what a murdery mushroom looks like, but I feel like it would have... Okay, so look. That's a death cap mushroom.
Okay.
That's not the most deadly mushroom I've ever seen. To be fair, I hate mushrooms of all shapes, sizes, colors, orientations.
I mean, I like portobello mushrooms. That's about it.
That just sounds like a bigger, more expensive, disgusting fungus.
It's a good mushroom.
That looks like what's hanging out at the dog park. Like, I've seen those I'm pretty sure, at the dog park. But all mushrooms look the same to me, but except for the cute ones that are in Mario. But I think that those mushrooms would be more deadly than whatever this is because they're bright colored. And isn't that like a thing in the wild where it's like...
Usually they're bright colored whenever
that's the warning.
Yeah.
And then you
you
mess with it and then you die. So why does this one look like a toasted marshmallow? B, this is what a deadly mushroom looks like.
No ticket.
Check.
Thank you.
Actually responsible for 90% of lethal mushroom poisonings globally, and that's because they can look pretty benign if you don't know what you're looking for. Now, it's said that a chunk of this mushroom the size of a coin is enough to kill a human being, and BBC... Fun fact, death cab mushrooms are actually responsible for 90% of lethal mushroom poisonings globally, and that's because they can look pretty benign if you don't know what you're looking for. Now, it's said that a chunk of this mushroom the size of a coin is enough to kill a human being.
How big is a coin? Like,
what kind of coin?
There's dimes.
What kind of coin?
And then there's like
$half.
$half. So don't make me get up and go get quarters.
According to those who knew her, Erin Patterson was no fungi novice. Erin was an experienced mushroom forager who often picked mushrooms with her family when they were in season. And a family friend also claims that Erin had a collection of books about mushrooms, including books about delicious yet deadly mushrooms. Police officers returned to Erin's home to question her, and neighbors reported hearing her wail inside, very loudly, wailing like, ah, inside. After these four police officers left, wailing like, ah, inside. After these four...
Not the wailiest wail
No.
I've ever heard.
Like,
It was deafening. Oh my God.
The police officers left. And the following day, Thomas, who's the Victoria Police Detective Inspector for the Homicide Squad, he confirmed that Erin was a suspect, not only because she prepared the meal, but because she had been the only one to allegedly consume it who had not fallen ill. Although Erin herself would dispute this in a later statement. She would say she had gotten sick. But I think it is safe to say out of the 5 people who consumed the beef Wellington that day,
I mean, at this juncture, 3 people are dead. And 1 is in critical condition waiting an organ transplant. At one point, she said that and I'll talk about this later too, but she said that they were never supposed to be there and she was just going to send them off to the movies that night because she was having an important conversation. And then at another juncture, she would say that they ate some of it the next day, and then it came out again that she said that they ate the same beef Wellington, but she scraped the mushrooms off. Now, I don't know how poisons or toxins work.
But like, you would think that if it's cooked, like mushrooms cooked, like the
some of the bad would get into the other stuff, right?
You would think.
Because as of right now, I mean, granted, it's probably a little bit confidential because they're minors. But it hasn't even been released, to my knowledge, that they even had a tummy ache. And I feel like if you cooked a Wellington
and it has any type of bad thing,
it would get into the meat or the pastry. No matter if you scraped off the mushrooms, you'd at least have a little upset stomach.
I mean, think about it. So you have onions, for instance. Okay.
Love them.
If you have onions and you do like a saute, and then you have like I don't know, chicken or whatever, you're still going to taste some type of onion if you even scrape that stuff off.
Yeah. Like there has to be some kind of like transfer, some trace evidence.
I agree.
Of the poison.
But I think it is safe to say out of the 5 people who consumed the beef Wellington that day, if she even allegedly did consume the beef Wellington, she was the only one who didn't die or become very close to dying, right? Because Ian Wilkinson made it, but barely. And I mean, he has to be hooked up to machines. He's still waiting for a liver transplant. If he can't get a liver transplant, obviously that's not going to be looking good for him. So he almost died. And we know that she didn't almost die. So that is saying something.
For everyone that doesn't know, your liver is what takes out all of your bad toxins, and so whenever it's doing overtime, your liver can fail. If your liver fails, your kidneys fail. It's a whole like cascade of things.
If you just need a liver transplant, I feel like isn't that a little bit of a big, I don't know.
That's a huge deal. So in the US, we have like, you have to go, your case has to go in front of like a huge like board, make sure that like, one, you're not a heavy drinker, you're not like, you don't do drugs, you actually have
This is for a kidney or any organ?
Any transplant. And so you have to get like approved by all these things. There's so many tests that you have to go through. It is a huge process to get like any type of transplant.
So when you get put on a donor list,
like a list, yeah,
that you've already gone through all of the hoops, like what if it's an immediate?
So we do have, okay, so let's say you are healthy, you are young, you have a great support system, all this other things that we look for. Yes,
a support system counts.
Yeah, it actually does.
That's great, because I feel like stress has a lot to do with.
Are they going to actually take their meds every day? Because there's anti-rejection meds you have to take every single day. Either way, you have to jump through hoops to get a liver.
Died, and we know that she didn't almost die. So that is saying something. Detective Inspector Dean Thomas said, quote, "We have to keep an open mind in relation to this. It could be very innocent, but again, we just don't know at this point. 4 people turn up and 3 of them pass away with another in critical, so we have to work through this."
Yeah.
I think it's fair. I mean, you don't want to jump to conclusions. You don't want someone to go to prison for the rest of their life for something that could be innocent.
No, that's very, very true.
So, I mean, that's why due process is a thing. Okay, so this is one of the first like impromptu interviews that happened right after people started dying.
Okay.
So essentially she drove home and all these news outlets were just at her front door and she was like,
What's happening?
Patterson briefly spoke to reporters waiting outside her house, proclaiming her innocence, but refraining from giving any details about what it was she had cooked, if she'd used mushrooms in the meal, or where she would have gotten the mushrooms from. She was very evasive with those questions.
It's a tragedy what's happened. Can you tell us about the meal that you cooked? I'm so devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Don is still in hospital, the loss of Ian and Heather and Gail. They were some of the best people that I've ever met. Gail was like... Take your time. Gail was the mum that I didn't have because my mum passed away 4 years ago. And Gail's never been anything but good and kind to me. And Ian and Heather were some of the best people I've ever met. They never did anything wrong to me, and I'm so devastated about what's happened.
Can you tell us?
And the loss to the community, and to the families, and to my own children who've lost their grandmother.
Can you tell us a bit more about the lunch?
What I can tell you is that I just can't fathom what has happened. I just can't fathom what has happened. That Ian and Heather have lost their lives, and Gail has lost her life, and Donna's still in hospital, and I pray that he pulls through, because my children love him.
And you must be pretty shaken up by this as well.
I'm devastated. I love them. And I can't believe that this has happened, and I'm so sorry that they have lost their lives.
How are you
I
kids?
just can't believe it. Just can't believe it.
Can you tell us where the mushrooms came from? Were they picked from the property area?
I just ask you to leave me alone now, please.
Police say you're a suspect. Do you have anything to say about
Yes,
that?
I say I didn't do anything. I love them. And I'm devastated that they're gone. And I hope with every fibre of my being that Don pulls through. That's
Where
what I
did the
have to
mushrooms
say.
come from? Were they picked by you, or where did they come from, Erin? Can you tell us? What meal did you cook them? Did you eat the same meal, Erin?
So, a lot of stuff was in that video. I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of times she like rubbed her eyes and then she would look at her hands like, do I have any tears? That's my reading of it. I don't know if that's actually her intent of it.
Well, that.
But like, not a tear fell.
No tears. Those are all.
Let's preface this by saying everybody deals
cried
with
different.
like loss and stressful moments and life different.
I think biggest thing is that they have repeatedly said, hey, what's going on with this meal?
Mhm.
And she will not say anything about it.
She doesn't.
She just keeps like repeating that she's devastated. Like she could literally say like, hey, like I don't want to talk about it. Or if she is completely, you know, she's done the right thing, she did not do anything wrong, then why don't you just say like, hey, I cooked this?
Yeah, she never said, she didn't answer the question.
She
just
never
like you
answered the
said.
question.
She evaded all of it. And she never at any point was like, I understand what you're getting at.
But that is not
I
it.
did not kill anybody.
Right.
All of this was an innocent mistake. I have no idea.
My biggest thing is that, like, me personally, I don't want to talk to anybody after that. Like, I probably wouldn't have even stopped to
No.
have them in my face.
Wouldn't have entertained it.
And the fact that, I mean, I cry at commercials, so
Sarah McLachlan commercials
okay.
for the dogs don't
All right.
count.
well, either way, I would be a mess, like hot mess. And so she's looking up because I feel like she just doesn't want to actually look towards the people.
She
You
could
know what I
also
mean?
be trying to look into the sun to make her eyes tear
Cry.
up.
Or that.
Because she took her glasses off for what? She didn't have to wipe a tear away. There was none.
No.
But she took her glasses off. She rubbed her eyes and she was like,
Maybe she was just trying to be an actress.
"This is just conjecture," and I feel like our conjecture may be spot on. I feel like it was all
I don't know.
an act. And I don't know if you noticed, but she went to like get her groceries out of the car, which is what she went somewhere for. And she went to like the wrong door, and so she walked like all the way around her car to get back to the.
I did not
It's
see
just
that.
awkward.
It's weird, and the fact that, like I said, if people were at my door and they're following me, asking questions that I feel uncomfortable about, I would leave my groceries in my fucking car. I'm not gonna
Right.
lie.
The
I do
milk
not-
can spoil.
I do not care. Just
It can die in the car alone.
I will Instacart. I will Uber Eats. Whatever I need to do, just get away from me.
Right. I don't want
Please
no
don't.
part of this. Get
away.
I'm sleeping in my car. We're both dying here. If I pulled up and there were people there, I'd be like,
If
I would just pretend to be asleep till they went away.
If I pulled up and there was people even like around like my yard, I would just drive by and be like, oh nope,
There's
we're going.
people there.
We're going. Goodbye now.
Well, you guys have a good time up there. Okay, so I'm gonna, since we talked about all these things to look out for, I'm gonna play it again just so we can see it.
About what it was she had cooked, if she'd used mushrooms in the meal, or where she would have gotten the mushrooms from. She was very evasive with those questions.
It's a tragedy what's happened.
Not a tear.
No.
Can you tell us about the meal that you cooked?
I'm so devastated by what's happened.
So a lot of people will push right here in order to create tears sometimes. They'll
Right.
like create that pressure, and I feel like that's what's happening here.
But about the loss of Don is still in hospital. The loss
She
of
still has like
Ian and
eyeliner
Heather
on too. So
and Gail.
I mean, you have seen me cry, and I get eyeliner and mascara all over my fucking face.
They were some of the best people that I've ever met. Gail was like...
Take your time.
Gail was the mum that I didn't have because my mum passed away 4 years ago. And Gail's never been anything but
Not one sniffle for her to wipe her nose.
No sniffle.
Also, I think Donnie, the person she keeps mentioning, is the one person that is in critical. Like, she keeps saying Donnie was.
I think it's, yeah.
good and kind to me. And Ian and Heather were some of the best people I've ever met. They never did anything wrong to me, and I'm so devastated about what's happened.
Why is it about what's happened to her, though? Like, everything is about, they never did anything to me. I thought they were the best people in the world. I've never had a problem with them. It's very me.
Yes.
She's looking.
Do I have some tears now?
Anything? No?
Nothing.
All right.
Nothing.
Try again.
Can you tell us
And a loss to the community, and to the families, and to my own children who've lost their grandmother.
Can you tell us a bit more about the lunch?
What I can tell you is that I just can't fathom what has happened. I just can't fathom what has happened. That Ian and Heather have lost their lives, and Gail has lost her life, and Donna's still in hospital, and I pray that he pulls through, because my children love him.
And you must be pretty ill.
I'm devastated. I love them.
Devoed.
And I can't believe that this has happened, and I'm so sorry that they have lost their lives.
Again.
How are you
I
kids?
just can't believe it.
So, in body language, I watched the Behavior Panel, which is a great, like, body language YouTube channel. But they talk about this, something like this, rather. And it's essentially a distancing thing, like, they lost their lives. She doesn't say killed. She doesn't say anything that, like, is close. It's all distance.
Okay, for instance, I've had people pass away in my life. You have too. You know, and we were hysterical. Like, hysterical. But like I said, everyone deals and copes with everything their own way.
Yeah.
Some people, you know, that they just completely shut off. Some people, you know, they...
Me personally, I ignore it. Like, I compartmentalize. I'm like, I'm gonna put this in this box.
And I'll deal with it
And
at
I'll
a
deal
later
with it
time.
later.
Yeah.
And now it has a lot of dust and other boxes on top of it.
Matt.
Just can't believe it.
Can you tell us where the mushrooms came
Look.
from?
Can't find what door I'm going to.
I don't know where it is. Where we're going.
Maybe the store. Nope.
Why would you get in your driver's side?
That's where she left them. Nope. Coming back to the first store. There they are.
Did I take you to the property area?
Hello there, Gov. Oh,
Leave
just
me
one
alone
photo.
now, please.
Police say you're a suspect. Do you have anything to say about
Yes,
that?
I say I didn't do anything. I love them. And I'm devastated that they're gone. And I hope with every fibre of my being that Don pulls through. That's
Where
what I
did the
have to
mushrooms
say.
come from? Were they picked by you, or where did they come from, Erin?
Can't be
Tell
bothered.
us. What meal did you cook them? Did you eat the same meal, Erin?
Boom.
Now,
She wasn't trying to answer any questions because, I mean, they're probably really difficult questions. To be fair, they would be difficult questions.
For anybody.
Whether you were innocent or difficult. Nope. Whether you were innocent or guilty.
Yeah.
Words are hard. My
They're
face
very
is
hard.
numb a little bit.
It's all right.
So, she does a little bit more distancing in her verbiage, in her nounage. Nounage.
Nounage. What was that? Uh-oh.
So she does more distancing in her dialogue with these people, and then she fully avoids after she goes around her car trying to find her groceries. She fully avoids all the questions, the hard ones, the only two that people anywhere close to this care about. What did you make? Did you eat it too?
And she doesn't want to have anything to do with it at all.
But it would have been quicker for her to answer those two questions that someone asked earlier on
Yeah.
than to have gone through all this
hoopla.
Rigmarole, hoopla, shenanigans.
Agreed.
She jumped through all these hoops to kind of like deflect and make herself look innocent.
I just feel like she could have answered a lot of questions. She didn't. She was just trying to act like she was crying.
Was noted during this interaction/interview that Erin mistakenly said she hoped Don would pull through when in fact Don Patterson, her father-in-law, had already died, and it was Ian Wilkinson who was in critical condition. It was also revealed that Erin had given a no comment interview to law enforcement, which she would later claim she regretted, and she had only done that based on advice she'd been given by a lawyer who no longer represented her. I just don't know if I believe that a lawyer told her it's going to be in your best interests to not talk to the police.
False. It's in your best interest to go in and talk to the police
As
and
soon as
say,
possible.
I want to talk to a lawyer. Okay. Controversial opinion
Okay.
here. I don't care if you're innocent or guilty. And okay, to preface this, I'm someone that I don't like to be in trouble. I don't want to be anywhere near it. If a cop is behind me and I'm just driving down the road, completely innocent, like, I'm going to prison. That's all that's in my head.
Right.
Can you get me to go past him?
I literally had this the other day. I was going to the hospital. I was going to work. May or may not have been going like 4 or 5 over the speed limit. Which
Rebel.
They turned into the hospital with me. I was literally just trying to get away from him. I'm not gonna lie. So then I pulled back on the street to go where I normally park, and then of course he like ran by me. It was one of our cops, like one of our hospital cops.
The hospital PD,
Yeah.
PD.
Yes. I was very embarrassed. I'm sorry. I was just trying to avoid you.
When we were in Australia, we were going to a different area of the country every 3 days to teach a new class. I think we had been to 4 cities at this point, with 2, maybe 3 days in each place. And officers, like badged in uniform officers, came up and was like, "We need to talk to you guys." And I was like,
"Excuse me?
I'm getting locked up abroad. I'm never making it home.
Bye."
I have to send a smoke signal now to my mom to let her know, because I'm never getting out of here. In my head,
You're dying.
I'm never talking to anybody I've ever loved ever again. I hope my puppies are taken care of. And of course it was nothing. They just were like, I don't know, maybe it was a random check.
Was it probably like, where are you coming from? Like, how long are you going to be here? Are you sure?
We were there on a tourist visa. So, okay, so in my head, I'm going to prison because I was just too suspicious. Like, that was my charge.
But doing what? You're never suspicious.
It doesn't matter.
You're never suspicious.
I'm so suspicious. I'm so suspicious. But that was in my head. It doesn't matter. It's not supposed to be logical. I was like, I'm going to prison forever. It's my life now. I'm going to have to learn prison terms. But it turns out it was like, why are you guys going to so many cities? And we were like, we are teaching a class. It's a whole thing. It was an entire whole thing. And I just knew I was going away for a lifetime. And I'd never seen my puppies again. That's just where my brain goes. How did we get here? Start loading.
I'm not sure.
Rewind 10 seconds.
So I just don't know if I believe that a lawyer told her it's going to be in your best interests to not talk to the police.
Okay.
There it is.
There it is.
Always ask for a lawyer, because you don't know what they know. You don't know what they don't know. And more importantly, you don't know what they you don't know what they assume.
Whenever I'm talking to friends that like, oh yeah, I think that you know something that's going on with someone else, I will say way too much. I'm like, oh, sorry.
You should literally always have a lawyer.
Just have it on retainer, since, you know, we all can afford it.
You don't even have to have it on retainer.
Just kidding.
You just have to walk in there and be like,
I need a lawyer.
attorney. If nothing else, it'll get you out of some shit, because they'll be like, okay, but I just have a couple questions, and then anything you say after that can't be used against you, because you said the buzzword
Last time I checked,
attorney.
I need a attorney. I don't know what this just happened.
Those look like good topiaries.
I'm making trees now.
You rock your topiary life. I'm trying to make land. Time out for a potty break. So during this potty break, I left the phone. Nope. Yes. No. The GoPro that was filming our faces, keep recording, and the battery died. And so a lot of the right here for the next little bit is not here. So you're just going to get the overhead, one of the art angled cameras, so that you can get the commentary, I guess, the back and forth of Jen and I, so that you don't forget, so that you don't miss anything. And I just wanted to let you know that that's what's happening. And yes, I look different from the other Erica from the future, because this is even more in the future, because I'm still editing, because things still aren't going right. P.S. If you have a video editing software that you really, really like to use, let me know so that I can start using that, because what I'm using now is just not working for anything.
And at this point, I'm actually going to jump ahead a little bit to August 11th so we can discuss the statement from Erin, which she finally gave to the police. But it was also, strangely enough, leaked to the media, like either at the same time that she gave it to the police or very shortly after. And Erin claims, she did not leak it. She denies leaking it. The police have been incredibly closed off about giving details in regards to this case. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to give even their opinion. They keep saying, like, yeah, it could have been on purpose. It could have been an accident. We just got to look at the evidence and wait and see. They're really not revealing anything. So why would anybody inside law enforcement leak this statement? And in general, this statement does seem like Erin is talking to the general public as opposed to the police. Now, in this statement, Erin gives her version of events of what happened on July 29th and in the days following, and how hard things had been on her since the incident had happened.
Pause.
Once again, this is why I think...
Except the fact that she had the whole wrong person thinking that he was in critical condition whenever, no, he already passed away. I'm sorry, but if you are actually a close-knit family where you love each other so much, how do you not know who died?
The math is not mathing.
So she said, quote, "I am now wanting to clear up the record because I have become extremely stressed and overwhelmed by the deaths of my loved ones. I am hoping this statement might help in some way. I believe if people understood the background more, they would not be so quick to rush to judgment." Sidebar, people understood the background more. Is that something you would say in a statement to law enforcement? Or is that something you would say in a statement that you knew was going to be leaked to the public? The very people it sounds like you're talking to. Okay, back to the statement. She continues on saying, "I am now devastated to think that these mushrooms may have contributed to the illness suffered by my loved ones. I really want to repeat that I absolutely had no reason to hurt these people whom I loved," end quote. She loved these people. Love, 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 love. Remember, I loved them. So a lot of, like, this is so hard on me. And I typically don't like to see that in statements right off the bat from people who are suspected in being part of, a murder crime, because it takes away from the victims the fact that 3 of them are dead. 1 of them is in critical condition, needs a new organ, and you're just talking constantly about how stressed you are. So Erin said that on July 29th, she prepared her beef Wellington with a mixture of dried mushrooms she'd purchased from an Asian grocery store in Melbourne months prior, as well as fresh button mushrooms she'd recently purchased from a local supermarket. She said, quote, "I used the dried mushrooms as they had been in my cupboard for some time and I wanted to use them up. I rehydrated them and put them into the dish with the mushrooms that I had bought at the supermarket," end quote.
Now, Erin also claims she did consume the meal. She said she plated everything up, she allowed her guests to choose their own plates, and then she took the last plate remaining. After lunch, Erin claims she was sick. She started feeling very ill, just like her guests. So she went to the Leongatha Hospital complaining of stomach pains and cramps and diarrhea. And like her guests, she thought she had food poisoning. And she claims she was put on a saline drip, given a liver protective drug, and kept overnight before being sent home the next day.
Does that sound like something that would happen here in the States?
I mean, you might be on a saline drip just because, I mean, you do need fluids. I'm wondering what this liver protecting drug is. There's different liver tests that we do, but there's not like a certain drug. So I work on the ICU, but we also do liver transplants on my unit. So I've
Okay.
never seen the drug.
So you're familiar with liver transplants?
Yeah. So we do kidney and liver transplants on my unit, and then high acuity trauma, heart stuff, and then, yeah.
Two things about this. Several media sources have reported that the first time Erin went to the hospital, she wasn't admitted at all. So once again, we don't really know if what she's saying is true. The second thing about these claims she's making, which have stuck out to me, is she says that after she was sent home from the hospital the next day, which would have been July 30th, she prepared the leftover beef Wellington for her 2 children. However, she said she scraped off the mushrooms because she claimed her kids don't like mushrooms.
And this begs the question, if you thought you and your guests had food poisoning,
Would
if
you cook it
all had
again?
to go to the
No.
hospital because you were suffering from these horrible, gastrointestinal symptoms, and you had to be put on a saline drip and get like a liver protective medicine, why would you serve the last meal that any of you ate to your own children?
You don't go into liver failure that easily with just I got sick off of something. Like, you got poisoned. You overdosed on poison.
I guess this doesn't even count as severe food poisoning. This is
isn't even-
actual.
I was like, this is
regular
actual
poisoning.
regular poisoning. Like, if I were to go and get like salmonella, it's called a blood culture. You'll get a blood culture. You get salmonella, whatever. But this is something completely different. You would not want to serve that to anyone if you even thought that this could have made them sick.
It sounds like at this point in the story,
she knows. Well,
the word is that
my whole thing is like, if you have reporters at your door and they're like, "Hey, what did you serve them?" and then in the back of your mind you're like, "Oh, I served them this and they died." I'm not gonna lie, every ingredient I even put in that thing would be in the trash, on fire.
Well, she actually threw things in the trash that later would come back to haunt her.
I don't like tomatoes. I don't like tomatoes. I don't like how... Tomatoes are amazing. I like, okay, do you say capri or caprese salad?
You're talking about caprese?
Or that. Oh, okay. Third one's a charm.
And if you did and you scraped the mushrooms off, it kind of maybe seems like you knew that the problem was with the mushrooms. But I don't think that she gave her children that beef Wellington. And if she did, I believe
nobody
it was
does
prepared separately and differently than the main lunch. This is my opinion.
Now,
there's also the matter of
12-hour
the food
dish.
dehydrator. Remember, Erin said she used the dry mushrooms and she rehydrated them and then put them in with the button mushrooms for the beef Wellington. But police recovered a food dehydrator that had been thrown out at a local dump on Friday, August 4th. Initially, Erin had told the detectives that, yes, it was hers, but she'd thrown it out months prior. However, in this statement, she admitted to lying to police. Allegedly, she claims while she was at the hospital, I think it was that first day when she went in on July 29th, her children and her estranged husband, Simon, were also there. And she, for some reason, was discussing the food dehydrator with her children. And then Simon, her husband, cut in suddenly and asked, "Is that what you used to poison them with?" And he's obviously referring to his parents and his aunt and uncle.
Ooh,
and this caused Erin to panic. That's what she says. She says she panicked. She worried that she would lose custody of her children if Simon or the police thought that she had poisoned her lunch guests intentionally. So on July 31st, she got rid of the dehydrator.
They would also have to prove it.
Just the day after everyone started to get
just
really
like they're
sick.
having to prove all
And
this.
Simon Patterson, her estranged husband, he could have been suspicious of meals cooked by his wife because, as I mentioned earlier very briefly, he had fallen sick in May of 2022 after eating some food prepared by his wife, Erin. Quote, "I collapsed at home, then was in an induced coma for 16 days, through which I had 3 emergency operations, mainly on my small intestine, plus an additional planned operation. My family were asked to come and say goodbye to me twice, as I was not expected to live.
I was in intensive care for 21 days, after which I was in the general ward for a week, and now I'm at a rehab place since last Saturday. End quote. Because family friends of Simon and the Pattersons say that it was after Simon was sick like this that he sort of separated from his wife, Erin. But Erin claims that after he was released from the hospital and from rehab, she let him live with her so she could take care of him for 2 weeks. And then at that point, she told him, like, oh, this isn't working, I definitely want to be separated. If that was the case, and she was the one who wanted the separation to begin with, why would she be trying to reunite with him a few years later? Now, in Erin's statement, she claimed that on Monday, July 31st, presumably after throwing out the food dehydrator, she returned to the hospital, and at that time she was transported by ambulance to Monash Medical Center in Melbourne, where she was treated for poisoning. Now, the Gippsland Southern Health Service did confirm that a fifth person, besides the 3 people who died and the 1 person who is waiting a liver transplant, had gone to the Leongatha Hospital on July 30th with suspected food poisoning, and that person returned later and was sent to Monash, but they do not say what she was treated for. They don't say if she was taken there by ambulance, things like that. So we know that Erin probably did go into the hospital twice complaining about gastrointestinal symptoms, complaining about possibly being worried about being poisoned or having ingested poison. However, we don't know if she actually was suffering.
Lies. She knew.
She knew. She definitely knew.
She knew. And so she was like,
She's like, I need to make a story.
need to be real sick real quick. It's time for me to be upset and sick.
Yep.
Erin also has claimed in her statement that the Department of Health had contacted her and asked what she thought may have caused such a violent reaction in her guests after they ate her food.
That's another thing. So whenever you have any poisoning or anything like that, you, as a medical professional, we actually have to get involved and contact the CDC. So any like overdose, poisoning, anything that actually goes to the CDC, they have to not investigate it, but it's like they have to put it in their little like tally, like, hey, this is what's going on.
It has to be in the database.
It has to actually, like, yes, it's a thing. In the States, that would have been investigated.
She stated that she preserved what was left of the beef Wellington and she gave it to the hospital toxologists for examination. Police are also performing tests on the food dehydrator to see if there's any trace of these death cap mushrooms on the food dehydrator that Erin probably used to prepare that meal, and also definitely suspiciously threw in the dump just a day or two after. Erin also has said that she's told the police where she purchased the button mushrooms from, but she wasn't exactly sure where she'd gotten the dried mushrooms from since it had been in Melbourne and it had been months prior. It had been so long ago. Then this is once again convenient. You can show law enforcement, like, look, this is where I bought the mushrooms from, and they're from the store, and if they were poisonous, it's not my fault. Now, the Australian Mushroom Growers Association responded to this because it kind of did feel like Erin was saying she might have accidentally had a death cap mushroom slipped in with whatever mushrooms she purchased from the store, and they were not having that. They said there's no way poisonous mushrooms could be grown in commercial farms, and they stated, quote, this fungus only grows in the wild. Commercial mushrooms are grown indoors in environmentally controlled rooms with strict hygiene protocols and food safety standards. The only mushrooms you can be sure are safe are fresh, Australian-grown mushrooms bought from a trusted retailer.
I mean, that was for Australia specifically, but I feel like in the States, there's also very highly regulated mushroom standards. She's saying that the only mushrooms that are safe to eat are the ones that are grown in a controlled environment from a trusted retailer, which I feel like isn't crazy.
It's not crazy. My whole thing is that, okay, if you've been let's go to Hawaii. There are people on the side of the street selling pineapples all day long. They're so good. But those aren't like regulated by whoever crop grow.
Crop grow.
Crop grow. You you grow your own crop. Does
You
it
grow
have?
your own crap.
Yes. Do you have to be regulated? No.
So if you grow for yourself,
you don't have to be regulated, obviously. Like,
who's gonna check?
I don't think so.
I don't know, legally maybe, but
I don't think so. Because
functionally maybe.
if, for instance, like one of my best friends, she grows like tomatoes and like green peas and I don't know, random things.
Yeah, if you're not selling,
Yeah, if you're
then
not
who's
selling,
gonna check in on you?
no one.
Jeff came to check out her bush.
You like my bushes?
Oh my god.
I don't think that it's regulated if you grow it yourself. AKA whatever she was, whatever that word you keep saying that I don't know how to say.
I don't remember what it's
Oh,
horticulturist.
that. The people that do that don't get regulated, I don't think.
Controlled mushrooms. I don't care what kind of mushrooms it is. I just don't.
Well, my whole thing is like, okay, are you gonna go flip a cow patty and then find a mushroom, and then are you gonna go to like the food people and be like, is this good?
She said, quote, I lost my parents-in-law, my children lost their grandparents, and I've been painted as an evil witch. And the media is making it impossible for me to live in this town. I can't have friends over. The media is at the house where my children are at. The media are at my sister's house, so I can't go there. This is unfair, end quote.
Right.
The year prior, Simon and Erin were fixing this house up to sell because they had been living there together, but now they were separated, so they were gonna sell the house. And this
So in the time that there was that overhead view, and now I may or may not have had an extra drink. And since I'm an adult and I'm at home and I'm just hanging out with my friends and I don't do this all the time and I was super tired, it is very evident that I should have stopped 2 adult chocolate milks ago, but I didn't. And so please don't judge me for what you are about to see. Since we're all family here, I thought I would just still post it, but
contractor claims that he was hired to remove graffiti from an interior wall inside the house. It was a wall in the dining room because
That's like voodoo dolls
Erin and
right
Simon
there.
wanted to fix the house up, get it ready to sell, and with this particular graffiti, that would have probably been a little difficult because when the contractor got there and saw what he was supposed to be removing from the wall, he was shocked.
And he said, quote, it was disturbing. We call it the death wall. They were done by their daughter. It's pretty disturbing for a mom to let her kids draw on their dining room wall, end quote. Okay, so what were these pictures and words and stuff on the wall? Reportedly, they were poster-sized drawings. There was words and phrases. And everything on this wall has been described as disturbing, which we've already said, but also as satanic. The drawings feature 2 tombstones with daggers and decapitated heads, along with red and black scribbles and quotes like, you are dead by the sword. There was also another one that had the date August 1st, 2017 written, and then underneath that it said, you will die within a year, along with the ominous statements of R.I.P. Grandma and R.I.P. me.
That's weird.
It's a little crazy because did Simon and Erin's daughter make these drawings
Probably
and
not.
statements? I mean, R.I.P. Grandma would suggest that it was one of the kids who did it, but it's just scary and weird because Grandma would end up passing away a few years after these drawings were allegedly made.
Okay, let's say you have a kid, right? Are you gonna like, leave that shit on your dining room table, or not table, dining room wall? No. I mean, no.
I wouldn't.
I would not. That's
Think
insane.
about the amount of time it would take to draw up all of that stuff.
Well,
You would stop them before I got to that much.
Oh, absolutely.
Much less. You're not leaving it there.
Well, and the fact that like if you ever have someone at your house, like how are you gonna explain that?
You're not. You're not.
You don't.
Police have said at this point there have been no recalls on mushrooms, and no one else in the last few months have reported any poisoning related to mushrooms. So if there was a death cap mushroom accidentally slipped into the mushrooms that Erin purchased at the Asian grocery store in Melbourne months ago, or the local grocery store just before the lunch, she was the only one who got one. Nobody else did. So the police have obviously simply said that Erin Patterson is a suspect, person of interest. She has not been arrested. She is not in custody at this time. Some of these red flags are the fact that Simon Patterson was invited to the lunch, but he pulled out at the last minute, and that Simon Patterson spent, 21 days in the ICU after collapsing from a mysterious stomach illness in May of 2022, and his symptoms were very similar to a poisoning. The fact that Erin lied to the police about the food dehydrator, the fact that she tried to get rid of the food dehydrator, the fact that she claims she had all of the same symptoms as her guests who fell sick, yet she is still alive and not waiting for a new organ. And there was also another thing that I read in some of these media outlets. I think just 2 articles I read it in, but it was very vague. It didn't really give a lot of specifics, but I think it is important. So one of the paramedics who was with one of the victims before they died had gone to the police because he thought it was very important that the police knew what the last words of one of these victims were.
They're getting taken by a paramedic. Paramedic is pre-hospital, okay?
Pre-hospital.
Pre-hospital. And they're already saying, hey, I think that this is important. You should hear this before I die. Like, that is a huge thing. If they even think that, like, hey, I feel like something's happening. I feel like I'm gonna die. It's like immediate. Like, we're like, oh shit. Like, what's going on?
Right.
So the fact that they already had this in the EMT, like in that actual ambulance, something is like they knew.
This person, whoever it was, whether it was Gail or Don or Heather, said that they believed Erin had poisoned them. They believed that Erin was responsible in some way. And that is very telling because according to Erin, she had a great relationship with her in-laws. And so she felt that these were, her surrogate parents, that Don and Gail Patterson acted as her parents and they were very close. But I also wonder how you can have such a close, loving, and good relationship with your in-laws when you know that your in-laws don't really want you to get back together with your husband, don't really think that you're in the right headspace to do so, don't maybe think you're good enough to be with him. Like, how she has more to lose by killing them than she has to gain.
In terms of things that are public knowledge.
I still think that she's
so guilty.
She's so
guilty
She's so
because how could you, okay, so how could you, so this is all in the assumption of what we're getting is true.
right.
Like taking in all of the knowledge that has come out,
Right.
and like cumulative, and putting it into an opinion,
Right.
assuming that opinion is true.
Got it.
I feel like most people would assume,
That she's
allegedly, that she's guilty because it looks like from the layman's that she's mad because her husband didn't want to come over and talk about a reconciliation, and she's mad at the in-laws anyways, so they can all die anyways.
everybody's gonna die.
Allegedly.
It's more like a if I can't have you, no one can. And then also, hey, you also made this, like you made this happen because obviously he's taking your advice, and so you get to die too.
I think everybody's crazy. Assuming that the family knew that she had tried to poison him some type of way and at some point. That would have had to have been while they were married.
Let's say if your mom knew that Jeff tried to poison you, do you think that she would want you to get back together with him?
No, she's not eating anything that he makes because she knows it's going to be mixed in that.
Exactly.
Is this Uber Eats?
Can we get this catered?
I feel like I should not eat this ever.
Absolutely.
Lies, the changing stories, getting rid of the food dehydrator. Oh, I don't know where I bought those dried mushrooms from. It all seems super suspicious to me. And once again,
isn't it though? For her to say, okay, not only did I not do it, there's no way I could have done it because I don't. If it was dehydrated mushrooms.
Essentially, what I'm trying to say here is that her argument is that they were dehydrated mushrooms. She bought a whole bunch of mushrooms at some market, and it was forever ago when she lived at her previous house, and she just wanted to use them up, and therefore they must have been mixed in with these other mushrooms, so it couldn't have been me. Why would it be me? I don't even know how to make a dehydrated mushroom, because at the time she immediately just got rid of her dehydrator because she says that she was worried that it would make her look guilty, so she wanted to get rid of it, and then it just made her look more guilty.
After taking a dehydrator days earlier, Ms. Patterson says the dehydrator was hers and she did take it to the tip in a moment of panic. Police say the victims showed symptoms consistent with poisoning from death cap mushrooms, but they're awaiting toxicology reports. Ms. Patterson maintains her innocence and says she is stressed and overwhelmed by the deaths of loved ones.
It couldn't have been me. And then they found a dehydrator in the trash, and they found like record of her talking to people that she threw it away.
So I don't know how mushrooms work. But all right, so if you have a dehydrator and then you rehydrate it, do things go back in it? I don't really know how those things work.
My only knowledge of
I don't know
is
what a dehydrator is actually. I know
it takes all of the moisture out of anything that's in it.
So at the time, I gave Jenny an analogy that if you have ever had Special K red berries, it's Special K cereal with strawberries in it, and if you've ever had that, the strawberries are dehydrated. Then if you put milk in it, it kind of moistens back up the strawberries, and so that's kind of what happened, but different.
Are we live or what are you doing?
I'm not live.
Who are you talking to?
You?
Me? Oh, are we just videoing?
The net, it just seems like the motive would be to want them to be dead, want them to not be around anymore. Maybe she felt like they were interfering with her chances of reuniting with Simon. I don't know.
So at the end of that video, it was all the updates that we had, but recently more has come out other than Keith. Hi, Keith.
Hi. Who are we talking to?
My subscribers, because I'm editing a video and I'm actually translating myself because I may have been too intoxicated to speak English.
So it was a different form of dialect?
It was more than dialect. It may have been a new language.
Cool.
I'll show you a video. So I'm down here at RK3 Designs to teach a color theory class and how to do oceans this weekend. And so I'm going to do that and do a Crime and Craft with Rhonda of RK3 Designs. It's going to be amazing. And so I'm trying to get other things edited while I'm down here. It's been kind of crazy. Anyways, so the case was where it was, and now there's new evidence, new revelations. Erin's been arrested, and here's some footage.
Erin Patterson sitting in the dock, an accused triple murderer. Last night she left a South Gippsland police station in the back of a police vehicle, spending the night behind bars before facing court in Morwell today.
Mr Duke, how's your client doing in custody?
She's good, thanks. I've just got to get through.
That was who I assume is her attorney, and he seems like he is not interested in talking to the press at all, which I don't blame him because there's still a lot going on. It's still a very touchy subject. I don't know if it's still an open investigation after someone is charged, but I imagine even if someone's charged, they're still looking into certain facts, any things in order to either gain more evidence or to prove things inaccurate that she may have talked about in an interrogation, which I have not seen an interrogation. I'm sure she was, I assume, because it's Australia. I mean, I doubt the due process in Australia is that different from the States. But if I'm wrong, please comment down below. I would love to hear from you. So 2 days ago, as of, what day is it? Today is November 4th. So a few days ago, it came out that she's been charged with 3 counts of murder and then 4 counts of attempted murder for all of the previous, I don't know if I should say alleged attempts on her estranged husband because of what he thought was her attempting to take his life because he felt some type of way after she gave him something. And so she's got a lot coming up.
Facing 3 murder charges, 1 each for Don and Gail Patterson and Gail's sister Heather Wilkinson, who died in hospital the following week. There's also 5 counts of attempted murder, 1 for Heather's husband, Pastor Ian Wilkinson, who survived the lunch but spent weeks in hospital critically ill, and 4 relating to her former partner, Simon Patterson, on separate occasions dating as far back as 2021, the most recent charge from the day of the lunch.
It's early days and we haven't received a brief. Watch out, mate, you're going to fall over.
Police swooped on Ms Patterson's Leongatha property yesterday, taking her into custody while more than a dozen detectives, specialist police and AFP technology detector dogs searched the property.
So that was the story of Erin Patterson and her murdery mushroom situation up until this point. If you enjoyed the story, please leave me a comment and tell me what parts you liked and what parts you didn't, because I'm still in the figure it out process to kind of find my groove in this genre of YouTube videos. And so I really need your feedback. I would love to hear what you guys think. And subscribe if you haven't already. I try to get these out every Wednesday, but let's be honest. I'm a one-woman show, so sometimes it takes me a little bit longer. It'll happen every week at the very least. And tomorrow I'm filming with Rhonda of RK3 on a new case, the Sarah Boone Suitcase Sarah trial, and I hope you guys tune in for that. Very excited to talk to her about it, and I hope you have an awesome day. Be kind to one another, because you never know what someone's going through.
And always remember, we do the test
So you don't have to. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.
I said bye.